Welcome to the PrinnyCast Roundtable for your July 4th weekend, or a little after Canada Day if you're a little further up north. We're a weekly show where we talk about the various musings in the video game world and geekdom of all sorts, from media and comic books and TV and movies and all that from over the last week. We're your hosts. I'm Chris, and this is Grover. Pew, pew, pew! And Mike's not with us because he's fleeing Louisiana for mosquitoes.
Oh dear.
And Boss Etna is directing us through ticks down there, as Randall will be contributing to corrections and info dumping and all that other good stuff. And it's probably going to be a shorter show than it has been for a while because we don't have a drunk Mike on the show, for starters. And it's been a fairly quiet week, all things considering. I know there's a few things that happened, and I cannot find the information for, so please forgive us if we don't get into that. Just like James Horner's death a couple of weeks ago, I wanted to talk about that on the show because I'm a big music guy, and he is one of the bigger composers in Hollywood over the last 40 years, so it was kind of a big deal.
It caught me off guard when I saw it too.
For people like me that's listened to where everybody else was listening to, like Michael Jackson and AC/DC in the 80s and Nirvana and everything in the 90s, I was listening to movie music and video game music. So people like Yuzo Koshiro and Nobuo Uematsu and James Horner, they were my rock stars. So, yeah. And it's also been a week full of storms and about an 8-hour power outage last night.
Oh, dear.
So that was fun. And especially since my battery backup unit, it's testing fine. Everything seems absolutely fine with it. But if there's even a flicker in the line that won't even reset the microwave, it'll punch off and everything I'm working with disappears. So there was that. So before I go rambling on about this other stuff I've got here, what you been up to this week?
Well, mostly just playing Ark.
More Ark.
And playing Terraria. And I'm getting tired of Ark just simply because the taming is annoying me. They said they're going to make it a new form of taming just because it's boring as shit. That's the best way to put it.
Well, it sounds like it takes forever to actually get anything done.
Yeah, you just sit there and stare at the dinosaur while it's being tamed. That's it. Yeah, a mini game would be fun or something. Maybe they don't even have to be knocked unconscious. Maybe they just tame them over time.
Mm-hmm.
I played some Terraria, but we're playing with a streamer, so we don't want to get ahead of him and do stuff that he hasn't done yet. You're kind of at a dead spot where we have to go fight the skeleton. You know, he has to go fight the old man. He's not there to go fight him, so we can't. And everybody's got everything you can get to that point, so we are stuck. And he's on vacation for the next 30 days. So it's just, nobody's playing on that right now. They're just like, oh, screw this. And other than that, it's just been a lot of grind writing and watching some Inuyasha and possibly starting a Patreon.
Patreon, ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
YouTube.
More browser games, all the usual stuff, and two more. One of them is more for the absolute hilarity of it. Tynan has been going downhill for like a year and a half or something, to the point that there's been events that's went missing. They're hardly doing anything. I don't even know if the support team is there anymore. Most of what's left at the guilds around us, there are just 1 or 2 players and 1 guild. There's a handful. There was only 2 people that showed up for the Guild War last night from them. And one of them, I'm not totally sure, wasn't being played by the other person because there's been so few people. A lot of us are throwing sign-ins for other players so that more people can make the events. And just so many people's gone, I don't see the game lasting too much longer. A couple more players leave, I'll probably leave it too. But here's the thing. Earlier this week, Legend Night was a game that was being promoted on Congregate, because every so often they put up these games that have like an over 4.0 average or something like that. It seems like the averages have gotten lower so they can throw more games on the front page, and Legend Night was one of them. And I generally like to try out a game even if I know I'm not going to enjoy it, and I knew this was another one of those browser games, and then it loaded up. This, I know it's a different company label, I can't find any names attached to it other than that company label, but this is Tynan 2.0. It's the same graphic style, it's the same setup, there's a whole bunch of improvements, but for the most part, even down to the prestige and the mounts, it is Tynan. So, yeah, I know what happened to them. And it's a pretty good little game, but it's one of those type of games that once you hit a certain level, you run into that brick wall that's usually give us money and you can get through that brick wall. So, and because the game's actually been around since January, the server is filled with really high level people. I am the lowest level person I see that's playing, because most of the other lower level people who showed up because of it getting on the front page don't seem to be staying very long, probably because of that point. Because throw money at it or get left behind.
Oh yeah, and it has to be making money. They still have to be making money.
Yep. And that's why it's probably still running. The moment they aren't making enough money anymore, they'll shut Tynan down themselves. You know, move on to another project, make more money.
Mm-hmm.
And the other game is buggy as heck, but it is the best cookie clicker knockoff I think I've ever seen. It has just enough new ideas, and you don't even have to sit there and click on something. It will play itself. It is one of the best idle games I've seen so far. It's called Shrimps. There's hardly any graphics to it whatsoever. There's not a lot of bells and whistles, but there's enough strategy, enough tweaking things around, and the little battle map system over on the side is something that I was looking toward including into that space opera RPG thing. So this is showing me, okay, this is how I could have made this work. So that's fun. But outside of that, the video gaming, not so much. I've gotten a little bit back into Second Life again, but
oh boy,
for the most part, it's just browser games. That's horrible. And I finally got over halfway through where Detective Conan is out. So I am like episode 370 something, and there's actually been some plot developments, some of which took me by surprise because they led you on to believe one thing and it turned out to be something completely different. Well, not completely different, but the character you thought was going to be a certain character was not the certain character, and I won't say any more than that because that would be spoiler territory, because that's one of the few good twists they've had in the show so far that isn't, Murderer of the Week. And then Falling Skies is back on TV, so I caught the first episode of that in Season 5, which I understand is going to be the last season. And after the season prior, I can kind of see why. They jumped the shark so horribly with Season 4, and it was struggling through Season 3, but we'll see. The first episode's kind of hard to tell because they're just setting things up, and it's a lot of stuff we've seen before, but it's still pushing in a new direction, so being the last season, I'm going to definitely finish it. But what I haven't picked up is I understand Defiance is back on air, and I don't even care. I'm not even sure I finished Season 2 last year. And I hate to say that because the premise of the show is amazing. It's like a combination of like Star Wars and Mad Max and Game of Thrones, and it should have been a better setup because the characters could have had a lot of depth to them. The fact that you've got this gigantic war that happened over Earth, and so all these aliens basically crash landed and stranded here, and so the Earth is desolate, and you've got St. Louis as being one of these bastions of humanity, and all these other aliens are there, and these kind of like clans or at least political groups, and you've got this Han Solo-esque sheriff that's coming to town to help try to keep things in order. There's a good setup here, but the writing was so boring and awful. Now, the special effects themselves, like the CGI and stuff, it's TV. They can only go so far, yet the show is still awful. They don't know where to go with it, and they just let it meander wherever they want, and they use really old cliches we've seen a million times and don't even bother to change it up, so I haven't bothered with Season 3. Now, if I was one of the game players that played the MMO that was built alongside of it, and somehow the show interacts with the video game, I've not understood at all how that worked. But supposedly events that happen in the game, if players do a certain thing, then it affects how the show's written. But like I said, I've never seen any real evidence of that unless it's just some drop line that they throw in there that nobody even cares about. So, and that's pretty much all I've done. I haven't watched any movies or anything. I did watch the CEO tournament last weekend, and I didn't catch a lot of it, but I did catch enough of it to find out that Mortal Kombat X had a real issue. Apparently, it was kind of the king of the fighting games when it first came out, and after the CEO tournament, where just about all of the top players were using one character, the DLC character Tanya, the amount of people playing the game not only on stream, but even in conversations around the internet, because this pay-to-use character was apparently overpowered in their eyes because everybody that took the tournament was using her, the game just went downhill. So I understand there's a new patch. I don't know if it was a panic patch, because I understand, get out of the way, car. I understand there's a lot of buffs and nerfs going on. I bet you 2-to-1 the nerfs are on Tanya. This sort of thing happens in a lot of different video games, especially competitive ones. I've seen in MOBAs all the time where, oh no, too many people are winning with this specific character. You've got to nerf it around, instead of players learning how to deal with it. There was a conversation going about how often should any video game, but specifically this week on conversation about fighting games, should a game be patched for this sort of stuff? But it's good that they get patched so it can keep the community alive if it's something that's going to continue to grow, like most MOBAs and certain fighting games. I kind of fall in the pattern of maybe every 6 months, maybe every year if it's necessary, but every other week type stuff, that's usually not a good idea because you're going to break something somewhere.
Usually when you want to patch, like when they do in League of Legends and all those, you want it to be very, very tiny things. Just like you notice that, okay, they're slightly overpowered because of this, so we're going to adjust is just like a percentage.
Mm-hmm.
This will take away their overpower.
Yeah, don't drop their hit points down like a quarter or something like that just to fix something a bunch of people are complaining about. Minor tweaks. If it needs
moves
some...
are really strong. Let's cut his health in half.
Yeah. Some interesting news I did pick up in the headlines this morning that I've missed is that Tale of Symphonia rumor, it is actually coming to Steam. So we will likely see more of the Tales games from Namco showing up on Steam, which is really good. I love to see all these Japanese RPGs getting some more love than the console-specific system that they were stuck on back in the day. Because I think Tales of Symphonia, correct me if I'm wrong, but only came out on GameCube. It was one of the most successful RPGs on the GameCube, so it did really well. But give it to a bigger audience like this, or if it shows up on like virtual consoles for other systems, I love to see that. Especially games.
Game I'd love to see on PC.
Disgaea?
Oh yeah, I don't know what I would do. You probably wouldn't even see me on cash for a couple of months if that came out on PC.
I know you can level yourself into infinity practically, but you'd get bored with something eventually.
Oh yeah.
Because it does have a great system that the fact that you can either replay maps you've already fought before, or you can go in the item world thing. In the item world, even though it breaks some things, the maps are absolutely randomized from who you're fighting to how the map is arranged, so you can fight a lot of different kind of maps and not be stuck to the same sort of playing style all the way through. But some of those maps get broken, like there is no way to reach this island over here where your teleport out is, for example.
I've had that before and it's infuriating.
Yes.
Sky one!
I mean, if you're lucky enough to have gotten a Mr. Exit before then, I guess that's not so bad, but still.
I guess, yeah, but I had it happen once, but 99% of the time, you're to the point that you don't have one Mr. Exit, you have about 20 Mr. Exits, just in case.
No kidding. Last thing you want to do is lose all that level ups that you got on that character, or item. And then the other headline was that Keiji Inafune is apparently just about done with Mighty Number 9, so he's starting a spiritual successor to the Mega Man Legends series. We were just talking about that last week. And it's called Red Ash, and from the looks of it, they aren't even trying to hide the fact. The three main characters look like the three main characters from Mega Man Legends with different clothes on. That is it. It looks like Rock, Roll, and the big green guy. I can't remember his name because I didn't play Mega Man Legends. I'm sorry. I played Misadventures, and I know he was in that, but I'm sure Mike would know a little more about that because he keeps up with Mega Man.
More than a little.